You saw them dogs out there. You saw them dogs out there. And it started with Stephon Castle. I didn't know whether to call him a Doberman or a pit bull, the way they sicked him on SGA today. And he the one that really, yes, Wemby was the best player on the floor, but Stephon Castle's actually set the tone from the jump with his physicality.
The San Antonio Spurs are back in the Western Conference Finals for the first time in nearly a decade. Victor Wembanyama looks like the best player on the planet. Dylan Harper has become everything the franchise hoped for. And quietly orchestrating all of it is a 21-year-old guard who not long ago couldn't buy a three-point.
Oh my goodness! Stephon Castle!
Stephon Castle, the connector, the piece nobody outside of San Antonio fully believed in. And it all traces back to 11 words from a coach who has never been wrong about a player for 30 years. The 2024 draft problem. A year into the Wembanyama era, the Spurs understood something most rebuilding franchises take too long to learn. One generational talent doesn't restore a winning culture alone. You need the right pieces around him. Rather than chasing a blockbuster trade, San Antonio stayed patient. They finished the 2023-24 season near the bottom of the league, and the lottery rewarded them with the 4th overall pick. The problem? The 2024 draft class had no consensus top talent. No obvious franchise changer, just a wide-open field and a lot of uncertainty. The Spurs had already made up their minds. The case for and against Castle Stephon. Castle arrived at the draft process as a 6'6" guard who had just won back-to-back national championships at UConn. His numbers were solid. Over 11 points, nearly 5 rebounds, 3 assists per game, and nearly 47% shooting from the field. On film, he looked every bit like a future NBA starter, but every scouting report carried the same warning: the jump shot. Castle shot under 27% from 3 in college. Defenses routinely left him open, daring him to fire. He rarely made them regret it. Compounding that concern was his role at UConn, where veteran guards handled primary playmaking duties. Castle operated mostly off the ball. That left the central question unanswered. Could he actually run an NBA offense? The consensus label attached to him said it all. Swiss Army knife. Good at many things, great at nothing obvious. His most common comparisons were to solid rotation players rather than stars. For most front offices, those flags were enough to look elsewhere. San Antonio selected him 4th overall anyway. Pop speaks. Gregg Popovich does not hand out compliments casually. 3 decades of coaching and a Hall of Fame career built on accountability and standards. He does not manage feelings. He tells the truth. So when Castle put together an impressive summer league showing and Popovich openly praised his maturity, his pace, his decision-making, and his defensive instincts, it carried weight that a similar quote from most coaches simply wouldn't. Then, when training camp opened, it got more specific. Popovich identified Castle as someone who could play point guard, shooting guard, or small forward immediately. At the time, that read as optimistic coach speak. A player who couldn't reliably shoot the ball being called versatile felt like spin. 2 years later, it looks like a blueprint. The internet disagreed. On draft night, a prominent national broadcaster compared Castle to a larger version of a veteran guard known as one of the premier two-way players of his generation. A back-to-back champion, a defensive anchor, a guy who makes winning teams better. The reaction online was largely dismissive. Castle, to much of the basketball public, was a defensive specialist at best, a roster filler at worst. The comp felt generous. The skepticism was understandable, given the numbers. It just turned out to be wrong. Year 2. The leap Castle's second season was a different story entirely. His scoring climbed to over 16 points per game. His rebounds jumped to over 5. Most dramatically, his assists nearly doubled, from just over 4 per game to 7.4. His efficiency rose across the board. The defensive identity that made him a top pick only intensified. He began controlling possessions before the ball even reached the front court. Then came the signature moments. A 40-point, 12-rebound, 12-assist performance against a Western Conference contender. 4 triple-doubles in a single season, matching a total that took a legendary Spurs big man an entire Hall of Fame career to accumulate. Even the jump shot began to move. After shooting under 29% from three as a rookie, he climbed to 33% in year two. Still below league average, but no longer something defenses could completely ignore. Then the playoffs arrived. Postseason Castle. Through 2 rounds, Castle shot 44% from deep on over 4 attempts per game. In a series-clinching Game 6 victory, he delivered 32 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 made threes. In Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, he followed that with 17 points and 11 assists, becoming the second youngest player in franchise playoff history to post that kind of performance. He passed a Hall of Famer doing the pattern. None of this is surprising if you understand how Popovich evaluates talent. He found an unknown Argentine guard with a 57th pick by investing in international scouting before the rest of the league caught on, betting on fearlessness and competitiveness over conventional metrics. He took a point guard at 28 who had such a poor initial workout that Pop reportedly didn't want to see him again, only reversing course because trusted voices inside the building pushed back. That player won 4 championships and a Finals MVP. He selected a forward who, by Pop's own admission, the entire room was unsure about on draft night. A player without a reliable jumper or perimeter game, chosen almost entirely on physical tools and defensive instincts. That player became one of the greatest two-way forces in league history. Castle fits the same profile. Not a finished product, not a perfect prospect, but a player with a foundational skill set, a defensive identity, and the positional flexibility to grow into exactly what a system like San Antonio's demands. The only difference this time is that Popovich suffered a stroke 5 games into Castle's rookie season and had to step away from the sideline. The framework he built is playing out anyway. Area 51 and beyond, Castle and Wembanyama have become the engine of this team. The duo's on-court production together ranks among the most dominant two-man pairings in the entire league. Wembanyama himself has talked about hoping to share a roster with Castle for the next 15 years. Around them, the roster was built to fit. A trade deadline acquisition brought in a veteran guard who provides experience and stability. A top draft pick the following year added another downhill creator. 3 lead guards sharing a backcourt. No position confusion. No hierarchy battles. Because Castle can genuinely play all 3 spots. That was always the answer to the roster-building question the league kept asking. Pop answered it in October 2024, and nobody listened. The bottom line. The Spurs are in the Western Conference Finals because a coach trusted his read on a 19-year-old with a broken jumper and unresolved questions. He was right about the Argentine lefty. He was right about the French teenager. He was right about the defensive forward with the massive hands. The track record was there the whole time. Now it's Stephon Castle's turn to prove the pattern wasn't a coincidence. Drop your take below. Can this Spurs core actually reach the finals in their first real run together?